6:30, I'll call this work session of the mayor and council to order. Every member of the mayor and council is present, along with our city clerk and our chief. It's good to see both of them sitting here tonight. We'll go through the regular meeting first. Tonight we have the invocation by Reverend Haynes from Salem Missionary Baptist Church in Little Room. We also have a proclamation for Pastor Collins on his anniversary. You should have all received a copy of the minutes. Does anyone have any questions or objections to the minutes? Okay. We will then have Mr. Ewing here for a sound bite of Snellville. Consent agenda. Anyone have any objections to anything that's on the consent agenda or any questions? I believe we're taking the vending contract off. Is that right, Chief?
Yes.
So that will be removed and placed as item number I. And then if we could just have a motion when we get to that on the new business to postpone it to our next council meeting. Also, I'll make an objection to the charter changes being on the consent agenda and ask that that will be placed on as item number J under new business. Does anyone else have any other questions about anything on the consent agenda?
I have one question after, on the youth soccer. Is that the same contract we've been looking at all along?
It is. They wanted to handwrite something in there. I don't like anything handwritten being added after we voted on it. It was about field usage. They may need more than one field, and the authority for that is up to the Parks Department to decide. But we're just asking that it be brought back on to the handwriting and changes in there.
The good thing is y'all debated that last month, and there was a term issue, and it's real clear. It'll be clear in your minutes this time, so.
The 2012, fiscal year 2012 amended budget. That's my understanding. We're gonna have an exec session on that tonight.
Please.
That will then bring us to our new business consideration action on resolution for the opportunity zone. I believe Mr. Powell's office drafted that resolution. We talked last time, Mr. Brooks was here and gave us a presentation about that. And speaking of Mr. Brooks, it would be easier for them, and they're working on a contract, if we had some areas in this city that we were looking at to see if they qualify for an opportunity zone, instead of having a consultant look at every place in the city possible. So that was the email I think I sent out to Eric maybe last week, and I think there was some confusion over what was being asked for. So if council wants to look at that, there's probably only one or two places that will actually qualify in this city, but I don't know if we want to pinpoint those places and have a consultant look at it, or if we want him to just do a grid for the whole city.
What's the difference in cost?
I don't know.
Because there might be other opportunities for opportunities. We might not have the opportunity to see once we have a consultant.
Unless we take this opportunity.
And opportunity may only knock once in which cases.
They're going, I don't think it's gonna be quite as, there are certain core areas which would be really disadvantaged areas that you've got to have as part, and then you can extend in different directions from those areas, but just knowing what I know about the city is you're gonna have to start at a very few, there are a few places that would really qualify.
Pretty obvious.
Yeah.
I don't see a sense of spending a lot of money to find something out we already know.
There's two places that jump out that automatically qualify. At this point in time, if we want to focus on those two spots, is that agreeable to everybody,
Yeah.
instead of doing a survey of the whole
And the
city?
question becomes, what do you include in that zone, from a boundary standpoint? You're looking at economic averages of values and productivity, and so you can go one direction, you go the other. Well, it's gonna mean a lot to the businesses that get hooked into those areas. So that's where the input, it's not, your core areas are gonna all be the same, but the input part of the process is just where you can expand into what businesses you want to include in those areas.
So we will give that, doesn't affect the resolution for tonight. We'll give that direction to Mr. Brooks. They are working on a contract for us to sign with the CID, and then also, remember in the briefing from Mr. Brooks, he said that the first step though was the URA plan had to be complete. Our URA plan was never completed, so we need to get staff on that.
Yeah.
else on Opportunity Zone? The revised fencing for community garden site, I believe Mayor Pro Tem Witz, you did a motion before on that. It was for an amount different than the contract, so it's just on.
Right.
We talked to the contractors and they're not willing to come down to that amount. so.
Okay, well, what I'd like to do is just table this or postpone it till next meeting and have an opportunity to meet. Because the entrance to that is being donated, and that may reduce the amount that they're doing. So what we need to do is meet with John and Kurt Schultz and myself, and maybe the contractor, because there's not gonna be gate and stuff on the front. It's not gonna have to be, it's gonna be donated now with a pergola.
Okay.
So that may change the price, maybe we can get it down to $24,000.
Okay. Are you, if it's donated, is the donation gonna go to the contractor to build this, or are we gonna have to coordinate somebody else building
On the
something?
contract.
Okay.
So I'll coordinate.
Okay.
Anything else on the community garden fence? Consideration action to authorize legal action documents provided by George Anderson. We had an exec session meeting about that.
The issue that we've requested, our law firm's requested, is the ability to file a declaratory judgment action under our ethics provision to find, if any, complaint that meets that standard. That's what we're asking. One thing that I would hope you would do is amend your agenda. He's now listed under public comments, and I think it would, from a procedural standpoint, it would be appropriate to let him come up before that vote's taken and have his 3 minutes of speech and then, I guess, answer our question in terms of what y'all want to do.
That's fine.
That then brings us to nominations for the Board of Appeals. We have Dennis Lawton, that's a reappointment, David Brown, that's a reappointment, and Kane Free, that would be a new post. Does anybody have any questions about those nominations?
I have a comment, please, Madam Chair. I'm in the process of researching the applications, and I've sent you the names. And I'm happy to say that I have one yes, a soft yes, meaning that she would like to talk to her family and her employer, which is Georgia EMC, and to just give her 3 days, and she'll get back to me. I was very confident of her, very neutral, non-voter, no political whatsoever. I had a definite no on the telephone, which my ear is still ringing. I left a voicemail for another woman, and I've not heard back from her. I've also emailed her. And then I have 3 other ones that I'm going to send to you for your decision. And I just want to thank you for letting me do this, for giving me the time to research these additional people. I've gone all the way back to 2007, and it's amazing that there are people still that when I call them, they're like, yes, I want to help, I want to volunteer. So I'd appreciate a little bit of time so that I can get these absolute definite yeses to you as soon as possible, and I hope within 3 days that I can get you 3 people.
I'm moving forward tonight with, I appreciate your work on it. We do have some things that are coming down. As everyone knows, our boards have not been meeting because we don't have a quorum. We do have some things that are coming down that may be missed opportunities if we don't have a quorum in future meetings. So I'm gonna move forward tonight, and if nothing productive happens tonight, then we'll take it from there. But I know we have some appeals that have come in front of us, and I know that we have some things that have been submitted to the planning department that if they are delayed, they may not go through. So I'm gonna go forward. I'm gonna nominate everyone as a slate. If council wants to make a motion to break up the slate, that's fine. I'll break up the slate and we'll do them one by one, but I am moving forward with everyone's names that are on here tonight.
Okay.
The 911 equipment, I think we all received an email from the chief on that. Chief, do you have anything?
The work's done. So, because they're coming Wednesday morning for their, that's why we had to have that in place for their inspection. But based on the information I got from all council to proceed, we went ahead and did that.
The police vehicles, those were discussed in our budget. Anything you want to add to those? Those authorized tonight purchase?
It's the purchase of 3 vehicles that that were budgeted there on the lot and will come in at the budgeted price. And it's just 3 of the vehicles authorized.
And that's, we still have 2 left, right?
Correct.
Okay.
These are all chargers?
I'm sorry.
These are all chargers?
Yes, sir.
The Arts Commission is back on the resolution. I think Councilman Manuel, you had some changes.
Yeah, I just put a new resolution in with the changes I thought were appropriate.
Does anybody have any questions about those changes? That would bring us then to the vending contract, which you all should have received a memo from Lisa. And we'll ask that that be postponed, and then the charter changes resolution. Tony or Councilman Kraus?
Y'all saw that inside the resolution itself, I tried to lay out the procedure for how home rule amendments are done. And the basic process is you have to approve the language in advance of advertising it. And so it's sort of a 2-step process. In order to get to that point, we need to finalize language, probably individually by the amendment, so that they can be acted on separately and advertised specifically. And then you have a 3-week advertising, and then you have a first read, second read in order to accomplish it. So that's just the statutory process. In order to begin that, we have to initiate it some way, and so the language attached as Exhibit A was Councilman Kraus's language, and it's just getting input from everybody else on those issues and sort of creating a discussion about exactly what it should look like. When we finalize a language, then our office is authorized by this resolution to advertise.
When did you send that out?
What's that?
When did you send that out?
Fill that out.
11 o'clock, 11:30. We've got copies of it for you. Yeah. And you know, that's all this resolution does is lay out, this is what we're doing. We're initiating the process of the amendment, and we're authorizing really the city clerk and the city attorney to fund the advertisement and draft the necessary changes that council finally wants in terms of the final form. There is one, I think, the first one is one on the position of the language with regard to the mayor pro tem. And it appears to try and restate what already exists in terms of the authority of the council to elect that position. And I wanted to suggest to you that the language of the provision in the current charter does what the substitute language does already. And so that one did not appear to me to require further, and it didn't enhance the language. And I understand what the issue is, but it didn't enhance the language. It's fairly clear the way it's written already. I don't think we're improving on that one. The one change regarding the appointment of boards and authorities for a term, and that they would continue in office until their successors are named. That would change, if we did it the way it was proposed, it would take care of boards and authorities, but there are other appointments within the city, positions that would not be within that provision. And if we're going to do it, I wanted to suggest to the council that we do that as a separate amendment to charter under its own provision and authority, and make it across the board for all city positions, so that there's no ambiguity if we're going to extend some, because right now there are a bunch of them that do say that authority positions that have language that say you serve until your successors are appointed. And then there are just a few that we noticed, the planning commissioners and zoning board of appeals members are not. But the next time it comes up, it may be in the context of something that wasn't anticipated, so if we wanna do that across the board, is what I'm suggesting.
So it just needs to be reworded.
Yes, that's what I was gonna suggest, if that's what your intent was.
Yes.
And, I'll put this all out there. Tom, obviously I object to the resolution. This is something I think that's well settled that needs to be done, through the legislation. So, it's something I think the court's gonna have to decide if the council goes forward on this. Anything else on the charter changes? Then moving on to the work session agenda, do we have any correspondence to review? Anybody? City attorney report, exec session?
Yes, just I had several matters, both in litigation and personnel areas, and that I'd like to include in the executive session tonight. There is one thing, I didn't say it when it came up, but we're dealing with some of the budget items that deal with funding of litigation and funding of some personnel type issues as part of that budget review. And I think it may take us, that one may take a little while in executive session. So what I wanted to give notice to generally was that if we take it up in executive session after the meeting, that we need to come out of that meeting and vote on those budget amendments. And I'm not suggesting any changes in the budget amendments so that everybody's on notice of that, but I would like to get it because we're waiting on the budget amendment in order to get the city's financial audit done, and that's something that's urgent at this point.
That then brings us to communication line item budget review, Councilman Howard.
Okay. First of all, Chief, good to see you. Melissa, welcome back.
Thank you.
Glad to have you all both back. During the budget process, of course, we learn a lot of things, and one of the places that I'm gonna look a little closer into is the communications line item for all departments. That seems to be kind of the catch-all for a lot of things considered communications, and I think that what I'd like to try to do is to look at all of those and find out exactly what goes into that budget. Is it telephone, cell phones, is it media, what it is, so we can have a real good, clear picture of exactly what we're spending dollars on. In other words, at the end of the year, we spent X number of dollars on cell phones, and that should be a line item for us to look at from a budgetary standpoint. Communications just seems to be the place that if we're not sure about it, let's put it in communications, because somebody who talked about it, wrote about it, sent an email about it or whatever, and it communicated. That's kind of the defining factor. So that's really all I'm hoping for there, is to really dissect the communications line and find out within each department what is actually included and what could be differentiated. In other words, is it telephone, is it published media, is it print media, or what it is, and let's really define it and put it out into the separate line. I think so. That's really all I'm hoping for with that request.
So what is your specific request?
That we look at the budget in
Right.
each different department, look under the line item communications, and define exactly what we're paying for in that. In other words, is it cell phones, telephones, is it copy paper, is it fax paper, you know, those kind of things. Is it, I just think it's a place that's got some hidden places that we're maybe not paying attention to with regard to getting value, so.
Chief, can staff get that description and how maybe by then, beginning next week? Is that,
Should be.
if you can email that to everybody, so we all have a copy. Anybody else have any questions on that?
No, I think something needs to be done because it seems to vary all over the map. I don't know what all communications charges if there's communication. Or it's different from one department to another and it should be uniform across departments.
Agreement with the City of Grayson for fencing stage usage, Mayor Pro Tem Wentz?
Basically, I'm just asking to see if we can, as I mentioned at the last meeting, Grayson, City of Grayson has fencing that's, that we borrow from them. We used it for Amy's weekend, and I'm sure there's at least one or two more occasions this year that we're gonna use it. It saves us quite a bit of money from either buying it or for running it. And I'd just like to get approval on an agreement with the City of Grayson that we can they have said that they would let us use that fencing at any time at all. They would like to use the stage in return for one event, which is their Booze and Hoops concert, the DDA. So I'm just asking that we can draw up some kind of a agreement that is good with council and good with Grayson, that, you know, they use that for that one time and we absorb that cost, but then at the same token, we get to use that fence whenever it's necessary.
What's fencing? We're talking about floatable fences?
Yes, that's it. 6 foot high chain link fencing like we had at Kane.
Okay, so these things can do chain link one?
There's sections in each one. I think we used like 36 of them last time. We went to rent them, it cost us $400 or $500.
And so if we were to rent them, would it be the city that would be renting them or stat that would be renting them?
Oh, it would be static, right?
So it would actually, so the city would be giving something to Grayson in exchange for a benefit the stat would be receiving.
I guess you could look at it that way. To me, it's two cities working together, but I'm sure you can break it down the way you'd like to.
Anything else on the fencing? Refinance of City Hall, Mr. Cap.
Thanks for having me. Are they looking at the electronic version? I can give out handouts. It doesn't matter, I've got.
Yeah, handouts, if you don't mind, I don't have the.
No, I'm old school. Y'all forgive me for killing a bunch of trees, but you
Yeah,
can take one of
that's,
those.
it's good capture notes.
Thank you. My name's Bill Camp, and I'm with Raymond James Morgan Keegan. Some of you remember me, some of you I'm new to, and some of you may be tired of having me come around. But our first discussions on the Urban Redevelopment Agency began with property redevelopment and plans for how best to use and kind of spruce up, redevelop certain areas of the city. And since then, time has marched on, rates have dropped, and there's another tool that you could use the URA to accomplish. In 2003, you financed your city hall. It's a beautiful place. You started and occupied it in 2005. And the URA could allow for acquisition from GMA and to finance, a refinance through that URA, Urban Redevelopment Agency. If you look at your handout, this first page here talks about the outstanding debt service on your bonds. You're paying back principal and interest at an average rate of about 4.2%. Next slide. This is a chart here. Not to be confusing, the middle line there, the navy line, shows you an average rate line. The bottom axis, years 1 through 30. The red line shows you where we are today. This is just a graphical, it's just a picture to show you just how low rates are. We're at the bottom, okay? So I'm not saying you didn't do a good job in 2003, but things are different. Next page, 2003 versus 2012. The transaction, legally speaking, was structured as a lease, what we call a certificates of participation. This is very common. You have an extra layer of security that the investors have. You've set aside about $500,000 in cash. I call it the rainy day fund, but it's called a debt service reserve fund. The idea is you will use that money if there was some kind of catastrophe to make sure bondholders get paid. Hopefully that would never happen. You just use it on your last year's worth of payments. Again, average rate outstanding of about 4.2%. 2012. We propose utilizing the URA, through which we could do a little bit different kind of financing called an intergovernmental contract. And this is good for the life of the debt. A lease, a COPS, is technically, legally, in the state of Georgia, not a debt. it's subject to annual appropriation by the city council. And so I know, and you all know, you're not gonna walk away from your very, very nice city hall, but that's the nature of the beast. The lease is subject to annual appropriation, and as a result, 2 credits, very same issuer issuing revenue bonds, or as a lease, you're gonna have a higher rate on the lease. Just, that's the nature of the beast. Also, we don't believe that you need a debt service reserve fund with a revenue bond issue. We've done many of these transactions, and we don't do them with reserve funds, because in essence, the city's general funds are that reserve. And also, right now, we're looking at a rate of a little more than 2%. So you're going from 4.2% to 2%, keeping the same term of the debt. This first analysis here just shows you refunding again. Refunding is bond lead go for refinance. On average, we'd save about $78,000 a year, every year, 2013 through 23. That's a lot of money. I'm deducting out your cash, that debt service reserve fund. We want you to use that in the refinance process to lower the amount of debt outstanding. So you come back to a number there of about $255,000. That's the present value benefit to the city for lowering your payments. Savings of about 6%. That's when you take that PV savings, present value savings, and divide it by the principal amount. Usually, we would suggest you do something like this, or refinance, if you can save 3%. So this is definitely what we would call big in the money. The next page, we can structure the bond issue however you want. This is what I call upfront savings, where we've pushed principal out. We've effectively decreased the amount of principal that we have in the first couple of years, and we save $400,000 and about $340,000 in the second year. The reason I throw that out there is budgets are tight, not just in Snellville, but all over, and perhaps getting most of your savings up front would help with the budget. Just an idea, and we can do anything in between. Next page. I'm going kind of quick because I know you have a lot on your plate, but if anybody had any questions, y'all please don't hesitate to stop me.
You said that the net present value is calculated at 2% for 13 years?
That is the average rate on the bonds, principal being paid back 13 through 28.
So the NPV would be simply a look into the future of the savings?
What we do is we take the present value of that savings, discount it back into today's dollars.
Right.
Then divide that number by the principal amount that you sell. That number should be 3% or higher. In your case, it's about 6%. But yes, sir.
Yeah, the projections look up.
This page, this escrow information, it's the only negative I can see associated with doing the refunding, and here's why. We promised to pay those 2003 COPS holders, the lease holders, through July 1, 2013. So that's our first call date. When we refinance debt in advance of that first call date, so right now we're probably 10 months out, we have to set money aside in a bank account. Actually, you all buy treasuries, which we craft to meet the needs of the escrow. And right now, as you know, short-term rates are very low. So we'd only be earning about 0.1%, 0.139%. And we're paying out to the new bondholders 2%. So for that little short period of time, there's what we call negative arbitrage. I just throw it out there because if we waited to July 2013 and rates were the exact same as they are today, we'd save more money. Now, I'm not going to tell you what rates are going to do between now and 13 because nobody knows.
And if you could, you
I'd be rich, yes sir. I'd be wealthy.
just point that out.
So I'm just telling you the whole story. I may be beating a dead horse here, but you just have to weigh that this negative arbitrage is, it's math, but it's a real savings number. The savings I'm showing you take into account this less than ideal earnings rate. And if you're willing to gamble through 10 more months, then I'll be right there with you.
Well, when we first talked about this back in last. when we
April.
did May 29th is when
Right.
we actually had this first. Chief, I think you and I were in that meeting. You know, at that point, the negative average was 70, almost 78,000.
All right.
So in just a few months, that has
You,
dropped itself, and it will continue to, but there's a point of no return if we don't.
you said, but I think in waiting 2 months is what you've seen. I don't think our earnings rate changed very much. We just
That's right, the earnings rate did, in fact, the earnings rate went
about the same.
almost the same.
All right. Well, you make a good point, you make my point. Do we wait or do we go? And I think you as a group just need to be comfortable with what is our threshold? What do you want to save? And if we hit that target, we can or we can't. This next page just shows you, again,